Hey, everybody. 2-1, you're on. How are you? Happy Friday afternoon for those of you on the East Coast. Happy Friday still morning for those of you on the West Coast. And happy Friday to all of you in between. Leadership in Changing Times. This is the Emerging Leaders Leading Others Today track, a program of the Changing Point and the American Public Works Association. How are you? Hope you're doing well. All right, now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty. We're going to start to talk about the competencies. So the last 3 weeks, we've been igniting the fire by looking introspectively within ourselves, getting ready for learning. So hopefully at the beginning of the week, you did the exercise, the leadership style inventory. And you did the exercise and you said to yourself, oh, I'm an energizer, I'm a researcher, I'm an organizer, I'm a, what's the other one? Nurturer. And you said to yourself, Ian, what does this mean? And then you went back and watched the video a little bit. What it means is not much. What? What? You're an idiot, Ian. No, listen now. It only means something if you do something with it. It's not enough to look at it and go, oh, I'm an energizer and I'm an organizer and woo. What it was supposed to do is give you some insight into how you operate. So we did 2 exercises. First, we looked back to move forward. The leadership history survey. We looked back. How did we get here? And then we looked at where we're at. Those 2 exercises combined hopefully give you some insight into your leadership style. And now over the next 12 weeks, we're going to introduce a new one. Now, some of which you may already be doing, and some of which you may not. And how do we get across that gap from what you're doing to this preferred style that would be what the times require, in our opinion? That's that change continuum. That's changing, right? That 80% of your unconscious behavior. So if you did that exercise on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, whenever you did it, you started to look around and you started to say to yourself, I'm a such and such. I'm a nurturer, organizer, whatever. And here's what that could mean. I do better when I'm in this kind of a situation. I'm not as great when I'm in this kind of situation. I do better with short-term focused. I do better with long-term whatever. So each one of those things probably, hopefully, gave you some insight into where you operate best and not so much. But then there was a second layer. And the second layer was that we had given your bosses the same exercise the week before. And we gave your frontline people, those of you who supervise, that exercise this week as well. So everybody up and down the chain of command has done the exercise. What's the point? The point is that you all should better understand each other in an attempt to gain alignment. Alignment. If I understand you and you understand me, there's a greater likelihood that we could align our time, our efforts, and our energy. Alignment. Alignment. So, for me, in changing times, we have to have as deep a sense of team as we possibly can. We have to have alignment of our energy, of our efforts, of our work, alignment. We don't have the luxury of being out of alignment, even a little bit, because times are tough, things are rough, resources are low. We have a finite amount of time, energy, and effort at our disposal. We don't have the luxury of being out of alignment. So the exercise wasn't just some trite, namby-pamby, full of crap activity that some chubby brown guy on the screen, that'd be me. Although I'm not as chubby as I once was. I'm looking right now. I'm not as chubby. I'm the svelte tan man. I've gone from the chubby brown man to the svelte tan man. I'm the svelte tan man. Yeah, I'm feeling good. My point is, it's not some trite exercise. If you do something with it. If you don't, yes, it was a waste of time. But if you take it and make sure your frontline people have done it, and then go to your director or executive leader and say, hey, did you do the exercise? What are you? I'm an organizer. And then you're like, oh yeah, organizer. Okay, I remember what that meant. And I am an energizer. Okay, we probably are going to have a little conflict. Communication styles are probably different. Approaches are probably different. I'm going to adjust mine. I'm going to adjust mine. See, key. I'm going to adjust mine in an attempt to gain alignment. An attempt to gain alignment. Because if I can gain alignment with the people I supervise by bending my style to meet theirs, not bending my principles, not bending my values, not kissing anybody's ass, excuse my language, bum, not kissing anybody's bum if I'm in Peel region of Ontario, or in Langley, BC, or in Halifax, Nova Scotia, bum. Not kissing anybody's butt, but changing my style to meet theirs, I've got a greater likelihood to marshal human capital and get the best of my people in today's changing times. So all of that 3 weeks was to help you better understand how you do and why you do what you do. The next 12 weeks is introducing these competencies. These competencies of today's effective leader. What works today? 5 generations in the workplace. What works today? User-driven society. What works today? Time of transformation, as Drucker said. What works today to lead others? That's why this is called Leading Others Today. So that's what we're going to embark on now. Okay, so every time we get together now, I'm going to introduce a new competency. And then we unpack it for 3 weeks. Remember, what's a competency? A competency is a complex set of skills, attributes, and qualities. Skills, attributes, and qualities that help a person be good at a thing, whatever that thing is. If that thing is playing hockey, there's certain competencies to being good at playing hockey. If that thing is running a front-end loader, there's certain competencies to running a front-end loader. If that thing is being a jewel cutter, there's certain competencies to being a jewel cutter. Well, there's certain competencies to leading. Leading. There's certain competencies to leading. Those competencies are what we're going to talk about for the next 12 weeks. The first one, I call it agent of change. An agent of change. Now look at the definition. The agent of change understands, demonstrates, and exerts influence by building trusting relationships to act as a catalyst for change. So here's the thought. I don't think a title means crap anymore in our society. I think a title, people are like, whatever. I don't care if you have a title or not. I could give a rip. So it used to be that as a supervisor or a mid-level leader, I could utilize my title to move people into action. Or I could utilize my position of authority to move people into action. I could, through my title and position of authority, assume that people would move accordingly. Well, how many of you know, I would agree, that those days are gone. The days of, yep, boss, whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do what you tell me to do. Those days are gone. Think about you. You don't, title doesn't mean jack to you. Doesn't mean anything to me. Why? Because the world has flattened. The hierarchy of life has flattened attitudinally. Maybe not structurally, but attitudinally, we're not as impressed with the title anymore. So today, to move somebody into action, there's got to be something else, some other force. Well, I think that force is influence. You think about this. Walk into any classroom, anywhere in North America, and there might be a teacher that has a title, but there's a kid that's got the influence. Walk into any workplace, and there's a 30-year employee that has no title, but is running the show. You know it. You've seen it. I know it. I've seen it. That person exhibits significant influence on what's going on, even though there might be a supervisor or manager with a title. And sometimes that person of influence ain't influencing in the right direction or a good direction, but they are influencing nonetheless. Well, how's Bob today? I don't know. He's pretty pissed off. Oh, here we go. We're all going to walk on eggshells because Bob's all pissed off. Or Jane. And we all know Jane and we all know Bob. And all of a sudden I'm the leader and I've got to deal with Jane and Bob. And Jane and Bob are looking at me like this. I was here long before you came and I'll be here long before you after you go. So you can just rattle on all you want, but I'm running the show around here. Now get your supervising self in my line. Don't try to tell me what to do. Why? That person exhibits, or that person has significant influence. Well, I think that if you want to get things done today, then you better understand how to be an agent of change. But I'm not going to intimidate change. I'm not going to be able to bark change. I'm not going to be able to autocratically lead change. I'm probably only going to be able to do change through trusting relationships so I can exert influence to be a catalyst for change. So over the next 3 weeks, what we're going to talk about is implementing change. And whether that's change within department or change of somebody's performance. And we're going to specifically focus on the next 3 weeks, performance. How do I change somebody's performance? How do I get another human being to go from being a poor performer to meeting expectations? Or meeting expectations to exceeding expectations. Notice I didn't say, how do I get a poor performer to go all the way to exceeding expectations? Now, I'm not saying that's not possible. I'm just saying let's take it in reasonable increments. All I need is the poor performer to meet standard, and the person who's meeting standard to exceed. That's what we're going to talk about over the next 3 weeks. So this session and the coaching session, which will actually be a teaching session, don't miss that coaching session, because that will be part 2 of this conversation. You noticed in the reminder email, it said Agent of Change Part 1. So this is such an in-depth subject, we need 2 hours to talk about it. So we'll lay the groundwork today. So Agent of Change, that's the individual that knows how to change something. I think that's the #1 competency you got to have today to be an effective leader in these changing times. What's the definition? You understand, you demonstrate, you exert influence through trusting relationships to act as a catalyst for change. You see performance that isn't where it needs to be, you have the ability to improve that performance. You have a dynamic that isn't where it needs to be, you know how to change it. You're an agent of change. So from now on, every time we have a teaching session, I'm going to give you a little self-survey. Oh, with the self-surveys again. Little self-survey. Because the self-surveys help you focus the learning. Focus the learning. And in focusing the learning, in the focusing of the learning, it helps you allocate time. You see, I know that you don't have an unlimited amount of time. So because you don't have an unlimited amount of time, you need to be able to focus on where you need to grow. These surveys help with that. So what I'm going to do is kind of randomly read the information, and you're going to take your survey at your own pace. Fairly quick, though. We only got 47 minutes left. Jeff just checked the time. Am I right? Yeah, 47 minutes left. I'll read them. You go through them. 1, I am nothing like that. 10, I am all like that, or somewhere in between. Now, you might read some of these and go, well, that's ridiculous, Ian. Like the first one. I believe I can make a difference. Woo! Pollyanna. La, 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 la. No. All innovation, all creativity, and all change emanates from people that believe they can make a difference. A guy is not innovating, or a gal's not going to be innovating if they say this, oh, it doesn't matter what I say anyways. Nothing's ever going to get any better. Those people are not coming up with the creative idea that we need to solve our problems. So, do you believe you can make a difference? If we were sitting down having a beer, just me and you, would you look at me and say, Ian, ain't crap going to change anyways, man. It doesn't matter what I say. Which I know, if we're all honest, is a feeling we have sometimes. The challenge is we can't be an agent of change if that's the predominant attitude that we have. So where do you line up in that one? How about this next one? I can easily connect with people that are different than I am. There was a time in the workplace that I would probably be supervising people that look like me, smell like me, taste like me. Taste like me? What do you mean? I don't know. Go where I go, eat what I eat, listen to the music I listen to. But more and more and more, those days are gone. And I'm not just talking about color of skin, me, the brown guy. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about creed. I'm talking about worldview. I'm talking about age. I'm talking about life experience. I'm talking about all those things that make up a diverse workplace. So it's not just color of skin. I got a bunch of people and I'm supervising and they ain't nothing like me. So can I connect with them? I'm aware that people learn and communicate in different ways. I effectively listen. Are you a great listener? I can change my communication style to meet another human being. You want to lead people today? You want to gain alignment? You better be able to adjust your communication style to somebody else. We'll talk about that in just a moment. I can use my life experience and relate to others. Like, there's always somewhere we can connect. There's always somewhere, even though your life experience might be completely different than mine. Me, a kid that was adopted from a Middle Eastern country, brought to the United States in North America by a United States Air Force sergeant, purchased for 2 cases of scotch on the black market. That's not true. That is absolutely true. You know, you watch that movie Argo? Well, in 1965, my adopted father worked out of that embassy. I was in Tehran in 1965 as a little infant baby and brought to North America. I'm so fortunate, so lucky. So my life experience is probably completely different than yours. But I'll bet you we can find a place to relate. You got a daughter? I got a daughter. Mine's 10 and 8, and I got a 22-year-old. You got a 22-year-old? You know exactly what I'm talking about. You got a wife? Oh, I got a wife. And you got wife, I got wife, or you got a spouse? He's probably just like an idiot like me, like all husbands are. We could probably find a place to relate. But do you have the ability to do that? Or do you just look at somebody who's different than you and say, well, they're different than me? You want to supervise today? You want to lead people today? You better be able to be relatable. I can apply strategies for building trust. We're not going to have a great team if we don't have trust. And in today's changing times, there's a lot of forces that are working to create mistrust and distrust. And there is a lack of trust. And whether that's negotiations over pay or benefits or whatever, whether that's wages being frozen or people being laid off, there's a lot of forces at play. And even the rumors of that kind of stuff, because it's happening somewhere far away, causes angst that can fracture trust. I understand my emotions and the impact they have on my performance and the performance of others. I can facilitate activities that will help remove attitudinal barriers. What's an attitudinal barrier? This is an attitudinal barrier. Huh. Or how about this one? How many of you know that's the biggest barrier to getting something done in the workplace right there? Attitudinal barriers. Can you see them? Can you remove them? I think of what I want the outcome to be before I begin things. I think of the impact of my words, my actions, my thoughts. I'm able to keep an even keel despite the ups and downs of life. How many ever worked for a boss that was like this and then like that and like this and like that? Side note, did you make that phone call? Did you call your best boss? Did you send them a note? Did you thank them for making such an impact in your life? 5, 10, 12 years from now, when I ask that question of your people, will your name come out of their mouth? Are you the best boss they've ever had? You have the potential for that. So that little self-survey, where do you line up? It helps you focus your learning. At the end of the day, the only way to move people into action, to get people to give your full allegiance, give you their full allegiance today, I think is through trusting relationships. So I looked for some words. I looked for some words that really would capsulize what leadership is today. Moving people into action. That's what leadership is. Marshaling human capital. Getting the best of somebody's insight, their wisdom, getting the best of their sweat, getting the best of their creativity, getting the best of their compassion, getting the best of their passion, getting the best of a human being. How do you do that? Well, Tom Peters, he unpacked it, and I thought it was the best words that I'd heard around the subject for today's day and age. He wrote that leadership is building face-to-face, trusting relationships that pull together people with diverse backgrounds, talents, experience, and interests, moving them towards a common goal. It encourages them to step up to responsibility and continue to treatment, and treats them as full-scale partners and contributors in any organization. A lot of words there, but let's unpack a couple of them. One, face-to-face trusting relationships. People are not going to give you their best if they don't trust you. Now look, they'll come to work. They'll come to work because they got mortgages to pay. They got kids in school or whatever. They're working on their retirement. They're going to come to work. But are they going to give you their all? The number one way for somebody to give their best to the task is that there's a trusting relationship involved. You think about in your day and age, as you were coming up the ranks, or even today, when do you bust your butt? You probably bust your butt when there's a trusting relationship involved. Now, make no mistake, there's some of your employees that would bust their butt even if they were supervised by a monkey. So don't take credit for those people, right? Don't take credit for them. They're that top 15 to 20%. They were going to be a great employee no matter who supervised them. But in most instances, excellent performance comes when there's some trusting relationships involved. Peer-to-peer, supervisor to follower, follower to supervisor, or whatever. When there's trusting relationships involved, there's something special that happens. And in today's day and age, with such a diverse workforce, which could be age, which could be creed, which could be color, which could be worldview, socioeconomic background, could be a lot of things. The bottom line is we got diverse workforces out there. How do I take people from different talents, experience, and backgrounds and move them towards a common goal? I'm not going to be able to intimidate them towards a common goal. I'm not going to be able to bark them towards a common goal. I'm not going to be able to autocratically lead them toward a common goal. No, I'm not. The only way they're going to move towards that common goal is through that trusting relationship, which we'll talk about in just a moment, and the removal of the attitudinal barriers that prevent that. When you talk about coaching performance, which we will talk about beginning today and the next time we're together in the coaching session, I'm not going to let you lead me unless I give you my permission. So when you come talk to me about how my performance needs to improve, you're immediately going to get this. No, it doesn't. Right? Your performance needs to improve. Who are you? No, I'm fine. I'm doing just fine. No, I really want you to improve. Well, I don't care what you want. I'll be happy to file a grievance against you harassing me. Right? I mean, so that conversation is going to go a lot better if I'm bending my approach to your experience, talents, and interests. But the challenge is we need everybody to step up to responsibility. Somehow I've got to get people to do a little bit more because we got to do more and more with less and less. If I can't figure that out, nothing's going to get done, or at least not as much as we hope to get done. And here's the kicker. Somehow we've got to treat people as full-scale partners, and we've got to expect full-scale contribution. We've got to treat people as full-scale partners, and we've got to expect full contribution. Everybody wants to be treated as a full-scale partner. Hey, I want to say around here, I need to be listened to. Well, yeah, that's true, you do. And you need to contribute. So the expectation is that we'll treat you as a full-scale partner, but we expect you to be a full-scale contributor. Well, all of that combined, where's the root of that? I think the root of that is trust. I think the only way I'm going to move people into action today, the only way I'm going to marshal the arrows, if you will, all in one direction, the only way I'm going to do that is trust. I'm not going to do that by barking at people. I'm not going to do that by intimidating people. I'm not. Even though there may have been a time in your autobiography where that was an effective approach. I tried to make the case last time. I'll try to continue to make the case that that autocratic leader approach, you better do what I flip and say or I'm going to rip your you-know-what, that's going to be met with significant pushback today. Old guy once told me, somebody can work 8 hours for you or somebody can work 8 hours against you. It's probably based on the depth of trust they have for you. Not the depth of like that they have for you, but the depth of trust and respect that they have for you. So if that's the case, if any of this is resonating with you right now, as you think about how you've been supervising, how you've been led, and who you've given your best for, the answer is you trusted them. So how do we use that trust, to get the best performance from people? Well, first thing we got to do is understand how to build trust. Where does trust come from? Agents of change are aware that the attitudinal barrier is the hardest of all. That this, or if you're a girl, the flip of the hair. I wish I had hair to flip. Right? That attitudinal barrier is the toughest of all to get through. And there's only one way to remove the attitudinal barrier: build trust proactively. Once I have a trusting relationship with you, then I can influence you. Once I can influence you, now we can change some things. But if I don't have any trust with you, I ain't going to influence you, and we're not going to change anything. Because you're going to cross your arms and dig your heels in the ground and say, I ain't changing. So how do you build trust? First of all, you better be vocationally competent. What do you mean? You better be good at something. You got to be good at something. Now for me, all of my life, I've always managed, supervised, or led people who had greater vocational competency than me. What do you mean? Well, in every situation that I was a leader, from frontline all the way up to executive leader, people always knew more than me. Everybody that I've ever led has known more than me about their chosen vocation. From a very, very young age, I've always been the youngest doing whatever it was that I was doing. I was the youngest coach. Then I was the youngest manager. Then I was the youngest director and executive leader. And at that point, at one point, I was the youngest in the industry that I was in, not just in the company that I was in. How can that be? I have no idea, man. I have no idea. And it was a painful road sometimes, because I knew I was over my head and everybody else knew that I was over my head. So it's one thing for you to know you're over your head, but then it's another thing for everybody else to know he's got no reason to be in that job. But I was there, so I had to lead. So the conclusion that I came to was this: I better be vocationally competent at something. So some of you aren't that way. Some of you are vocationally competent. That's how you got elevated into a position of leadership. So you're vocationally competent, but maybe your leadership competency isn't where it needs to be. Either way, you got to bring something to the party. So write this down. What is it I'm bringing my employees that they don't have? So if they have more knowledge than me about the task, cool. But what is it I'm bringing? Is it that I'm able to go get things done with other departments to make their work easier? Is it that I'm able to create systems and policies that make their work more enjoyable or more effective? Is it that I'm more skilled at a certain task or a piece of equipment and I can teach that to them? You better be able to bring something of value to that employee or to the group. You got to be vocationally competent in something. Because if you're not, they look at you like this. What do you got? You got nothing. Because it's not enough just to have the title anymore. Just having the title is not enough. Why? Because they've seen empty titles over and over and over and over again. So you got to be the opposite of that and bring something. And I think it's a proactive exercise. What can they count on from you? I mean that. So write it down. What can they count on from you? So if you're not vocationally competent, in other words, if the people you're supervising know more about the thing than you do, then just say that. I know all of you know more about it than I do, and I'm hoping to learn from you. But I'm going to bring something else that will enhance the team. Or I know about this thing. I've done it for 30 years. I'm a supervisor, and I'm going to teach you what I know so that you get great at it as well. Vocational competency. When I have a leader that's willing to do what I just described, I have greater trust for them. Trust also comes from open communication. Trust comes when we communicate well with one another. A diverse workforce is cool. There's great advantage to having a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds, with a lot of different talents, experiences, and interests, just like we talked about in that leadership style inventory. That's really cool because it gives us all kinds of different perspectives and life experience and knowledge, and awesome. The problem with everybody being different is that there's oftentimes barriers. Barriers in our point of view, barriers in the way that we communicate, barriers in a lot of ways. And that can cause frustration and stress, and that can cause a lack of alignment between our energies and our efforts. So for me, in my opinion, trust comes when I'm really good at communicating with you. Now, in the past, the expectation was that the followers would change their communication style to meet the communication style of the leader, right? Remember us all coming up? Well, however the leader communicated, you better figure out how that is and you better bend to that. If his communication style was a certain way, then the expectation is we all better figure it out or we're not going to make it. And it was tough luck if you couldn't figure it out. Well, that's not the case today. The followers are saying this: hey, you better bend to my style, man. You better take me as I am. Deal with it, right? I saw a bumper sticker. I am who I am, and you better deal with it. How'd you like to be that guy's husband or wife, or that gal's husband, right? You better deal with it. Well, okay, except that's not what the followers expect you to bend. Now, I'm not talking about bending your values or your principles. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your communication style. Trust comes from being open in your communication, and that begins with understanding communication style. So there's 4 kinds of communication style, as you see in your handout. Hopefully you have your handout. 4 kinds of communication style. First, fact-based communicator. Are you a fact-based communicator? You speak in linear terms, sequential, then this, and then this, and then this, and then this. And you're about numbers, and you're about factual information. You don't draw conjecture. You see the facts as they are, and that's how you communicate. That's your preferred style. And when people deal with you and don't communicate in facts, it annoys you. And you get frustrated with that. Or you're an emotion-based communicator. This is the individual that however they feel at any given moment, that's how they communicate. That's how they relay information based on how they feel right now. And if you catch them at the right moment, awesome. If you catch them at the wrong moment, not so good. Emotion-based communicator. Then there's the values-based communicator. Now, what's the story with this person? Well, every human being has a unique set of values. I'm not talking about faith or religion, just values. And you know what values are? The way I do my life. Here's how I do my life. And those values have taken hold over a period of time. Heck, even the mafia has a unique set of values that they operate based on. So what's your communication style? Is it fact-based? Is it emotion-based? Is it values-based? Or is it belief-based? That's the 4th one. Belief-based. Now, telltale sign of the belief-based communicator is this. The telltale sign is this: I believe. I believe. You could lay out every fact in the world. And after you've done that, they'd go like this. Yeah, I see, yeah. All right, that's great. Now let me tell you what I believe. That's the belief-based communicator. What they believe is what they believe, and that's it. Why is that important if I'm going to lead another human being in today's day and age? Because first the question is, what's my style? Next question is, what's theirs? And am I willing to bend my style to meet them? Because if I'm willing to bend my style to meet them, I'm probably going to be able to build trust. Now look at the tools that I've given you. Monday, I gave you a tool to better understand your leadership approach. Energizer, researcher, organizer, nurturer. Now I just talked about some communication styles of you. So the first step is evaluating you. Then I gave that exercise to your frontline people. If they haven't done it, you should have them do it. So you better understand them and their approach and their way of doing business and how they like to do things. And then you add on top of that the communication approach that they prefer. So you notice their preferred style and their preferred communication approach. And then you notice your preferred style and your preferred communication approach. And you look and see if there's a disconnect there. Now, in the past, we would have said, okay, followers, you better bend your ass to the way I do things. That ain't going to fly today. You're not going to get anybody to move into action with that attitude, guaranteed. Instead, if you're enlightened and you're smart, you're going to say, okay, how can I bend my style to meet them? And the only way you can have that conversation is to do those exercises. But I've given you the information. I've given you the vehicle to find that stuff out, to find a beachhead or a connection point with them. So open communication helps build trust. Exercise. I want you to listen. I want you to listen. For the next 7 days, I want you to listen. I want you to really listen. Like people are going to die at midnight. What? I want you to listen as though the person in front of you at any given moment, at any given time, is going to die at midnight. They're going to leave the planet. Now you think about it. How many times have you listened to people and you ain't paying attention whatsoever? They say that 80% of the or 78% of the problems or the mistakes that happen in the workplace are rooted in poor communication or miscommunication. So think about all the energy and effort and stress that's caused by poor communication. And where does communication start? In talking? No, it starts in listening. And in a few weeks, in a couple days in fact, when we start talking about coaching poor performance or improving poor performance, it's all going to start in listening. So I want you to practice that. Over the next 7 days, I want you to listen to people like they're going to die at midnight. And what does that mean? That means you're going to give them your full attention, your full focus, all that you are. You're really going to listen. You're going to listen with your ears. You're going to listen with your eyes. You're going to listen with your intuition. You're going to listen. What am I listening for? You're listening for what they're saying and what they're not saying. And you know where I want you to start this exercise? At your house. What? Yeah, I want you to start this exercise at your house, with your kids, with your spouse. I want you to really listen to what they're saying to you. We wonder why our kids go off and run and hang out with everybody else, don't want to spend time with us. It's because we don't listen. I mean, I did that just the other day. My little girl, Nadia, she's 8. She's about to turn 9. She come in and tell me a story. And I was working away on the computer. And I've gotten pretty good at being able to make them think I'm listening. An appropriate an appropriate and well-timed yep, an appropriate or well-timed I understand. All of those things would give them the impression that I was listening. Well, the challenge is my little kids have gotten pretty sophisticated. My little kids understand, my 10-year-old, my 8-year-old, they get when I'm faking it. And about halfway through her story, as I was typing away on the computer, given what I thought was the appropriate timing of and I understand or that's great, she left. She walked right out of the room. And in those indefinable split seconds, I realized if I don't listen to my little girl, she's going to go find somebody who will. And I might not be excited about who she finds. And they're going to be able to build influence with her just because they listened to her and gave her value by listening. Well, that principle transcends all neighborhoods. That principle transcends all workplaces. That principle transcends all families. So I want you to start this thing in your house with your spouse and with your kids. And then I want you to translate it back into your workplace. And I want you to start listening to your employees like they're going to die at midnight. And start building trust with them because you're really paying attention. You're not looking at your BlackBerry or your smartphone. You're not moving your mouse to see what email just came in. You're not thinking about the next meeting with your boss. You're not thinking about anything. You're thinking about what they're saying to you. Listen. So that's an intangible exercise. Now let me give you a tangible exercise. A challenge, if you really want to listen to your people. I gave this challenge to your directors, and we'll see if they did it or not. And I'm going to give the challenge to you. I want you to send out a survey. I want you to send out a survey to the people that work for you, that you have the honor of leading. I want you to have 3 questions in that survey. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? Suggestions for my improvement. And the third question, kind of a funny one, but it has a point. If you could send me back to school, what class would you make me take? In other words, what do you think I need to learn? I want you to put that question on a white piece of paper, those 3 questions. I want you to hand them out. Tell people to fill them out and slide them under your door or put them in your box or whatever, but to return them anonymously. What? Yeah, let's get some feedback. Let's get some feedback about how we could improve so we can start to pick out our one thing. Remember, I'm going to ask you to pick out one thing in a couple of days that you want to work on and get better at. What's your one thing? Well, a very effective vehicle for finding out what that one thing should be would be this survey. Well, they're just all going to complain and bitch and moan and whine. Well, maybe because no one's asked them how you're doing, maybe, at first. But imagine if you did this every 90 days. Every 90 days, you just handed out a little survey. How am I doing? I used to do that. I used to hand out that survey every 90 days to my direct reports. And then once a year, I handed it out to all 1,100 employees that I supervised or that came under my authority. How am I doing? And what's funny is the how am I doing conversation makes the how are you doing conversation a heck of a lot easier. So do you have the guts to send out that survey? Now, the funny thing about it is you're going to get great feedback, hopefully. You'll have to weed through some of the crap, but you're going to get some feedback. And in the getting of that feedback, you're looking for trends. You're looking for trends, that's all. You're looking to see if there's some consistency in what people are saying that you're doing right or what people are saying you need to work on. And you're looking for some trends on where they want to send you back to class. Now, imagine this. You get that feedback. You then take that feedback. You pick out your one thing. And then over the next 12 weeks, you work on that. And then you're better at it. What do you think they'll say? Well, don't you think they'll say, holy crap, they listened. Holy crap, they took what I had to say and they did something with it. Holy crap, they not only listened, took what I had to say and did something with it, but they're better at it. Wow. I can trust them. You want to build allegiance? You want to have somebody be willing to run through a wall for you? Then proactively say, how could I get better? Take the information and do something with it. And this next 12 weeks is a perfect opportunity because I'm going to support you and we're going to support you in the getting better. But it all begins with you putting it out. Well, I know what I need to get better at. I don't need to ask anybody what I need to get better at. Listen, you're not listening. Hello? The reason of asking is because in today's user-driven society, they will feel like they're a part of the process and you'll get deeper and more profound buy-in. That's the reason for the asking. Plus, they have a perspective that you may not have. Your purview is only about this big. You can't see the rest, right? I can't see that I got a big old bald spot and look like Ronald McDonald. Instead, I think I look like Dodi Al-Fayed, Princess Diana's boyfriend before she died. I think I got that Caesar look going on. But you know what I got? I got Ronald McDonald going on, okay, dude? But I can't see that. Well, in the same sense, we need this feedback because feedback is the breakfast of champions. So trust comes when I'm proactively listening. Well, I have an open door policy. Foolish. Foolish. It's foolish. Open door policy is crap. Ah! Listen, by the time the problem comes in the open door, it's big enough that it's gotten to a mushroom cloud where someone felt like they had to come in the open door. Wouldn't you like to cut that off at the pass and be there before it becomes the mushroom cloud? So it doesn't take all your energy and effort and time? So listening is a proactive exercise. So I want to proactively get the information so I can cut things off at the pass before it gets big. Open door policy is a reactive exercise. I handle it when it comes to me. It sounds good in theory and it makes us feel warm and fuzzy inside. I have an open door policy. I'm such a great person. Well, no, you're a fool because it's too late by the time the information comes in the open door. You want to be proactive and ahead of a curve so it doesn't take as much of your time, energy, and effort, which you have a finite amount of. Trust comes from clarity of outcome. Trust, I trust that you have my best interests in mind. Or I trust that you know where the hell we're going. Well, if you communicate to me where we're headed, I will increase my trust of those two things. If you're never communicating to me where we're going, then I start to come up with my own conjecture. I start to fill that void of information with my own thoughts or the thoughts of those around me. And that creates distrust or mistrust. So instead, we're regularly communicating the outcomes, the annual outcome, the quarterly outcome, the monthly outcome, the weekly outcome, the daily outcome. When we talk about building pride in the workplace, which we will spend significant time on how to build pride, because I think it is a force of human capital unlike any other except for love. We'll talk about it in depth, but it begins with, and trust can be enhanced by, me feeling like you've clearly articulated to me the outcome of why we're doing all this crap. So ask yourself, how am I communicating the outcomes, the why behind the task? Trust comes from a high emotional IQ. Now here's what that means to me. You've been supervised in your past by guys or gals that exploded, blew up, lost their cool. And then a day or 2 days later, they came back and apologized to everybody. Hey, I'm really sorry, you know. I know for me, one of my biggest challenges is that I lose it. All this zeal and all this passion has tremendous advantages. All this zeal and all this passion uncontrolled has a significant downside. And I can honestly tell you, I don't know how many people I've driven off who wanted to be a part of what we were doing, who wanted to be involved in what we were doing, but my inability to control that passion and zeal, they couldn't take it, man. They couldn't take it. And they just said, Ian, I love you or love what we're doing, but dude, every day is not the Super Bowl. Every day is not the beginning and end of the world. And that's one of the things I have to work on. I have to work on this high emotional IQ. The simplicity of a high emotional IQ is this. The simplicity is this. When I feel my elevator starting to rise, when I feel like I'm about to get out of control, I have the ability to disengage the clutch and let the thing just idle for a few minutes to get myself back under control. To me, that's the simplicity of a high emotional IQ. You hear a lot of people saying that EQ today is more important than IQ. EQ being emotional as opposed to intellectual. Well, okay, I'm good with all that, but I'm a pretty simple guy. So my simple is this. Can you disengage the clutch before some crap flies out of your mouth that you're not going to be excited about? Or some action occurs that you're going to have to clean up the mess, or your boss is calling you, or a grievance gets filed. At the end of the day, can you disengage the clutch? Well, I know for me, that's something even at 47 years of age, 47 years being on this planet, I'm still working on. How about you? Finally, trust comes from being relatable and likable and loving what you do. You know people, and I know people who have quit and stayed. They've quit and stayed. And they wonder why their employees don't give their best. Because they see a guy who's jaded or a gal that's jaded and crusty and is a curmudgeon. You're not going to be able to be a curmudgeon and get people to give their best today. You're going to have to be relatable. And you're going to have to be likable. People are not going to give their best to people who are not likable. What does that mean? That means just common courtesy. That means saying hi. That means asking how people are doing and really caring how they're doing. Simple, basic civility is absent today. Well, I'm not getting that from them. Well, I don't care what you're getting from them. You're the leader. Well, nobody treats me like that. My boss doesn't treat me like that. I don't care how your boss treats you. Your boss being a piece of junk leader does not absolve you of the responsibility to be a great leader. So you can't throw that card down. It's not okay. It's not okay to say, I'm being led poorly, so I will lead poorly. If you're being led poorly, it should be a deeper motivation to be a better leader. And trust me, I'm hammering your bosses as hard as I'm hammering you. And I'm not hammering because I'm angry. I'm hammering because I love you. And I want to see you be great. Because as you're great as a mid-level leader, then the organization improves. And as the organization improves, because you touch every citizen from cradle to grave, the community gets better. And that's my ultimate goal. To build communities we'd all want to live in. And that begins with you and your relatability. And are you likable? Now look, I didn't say you kiss people's butt. I said that earlier. I didn't say that you change your principles and values. I just said you're civil, kind, considerate, even when people aren't to you. Okay, all of those things make up in your toolkit ways that you can build trust, both intangible and tangible. Will you send out that survey? That's a tangible. Will you listen like people are going to die at midnight? That's an intangible. If you're not vocationally competent, get vocationally competent. That's an intangible. Tangible, pick out the thing that you're going to deliver to your people and that they can count on from you. That's your competency. And then make sure you deliver that regularly to enhance their situation. No better way to gain loyalty and allegiance than enhance somebody's situation. Even if you're not vocationally competent. Can't blow up on people. Disengage the clutch and be likable and relatable. If you've quit and stayed, something must change, especially if in your position of leadership, if you're in a position of leadership. Okay, take all that stuff, set it right here, right there. Because now we've got to talk about why don't people perform? I call it, why don't people just do their jobs? Why don't people just do their jobs, Ian? Why do I have to go through all of this Dr. Phil crap? Why do I have to hang out a shingle that says mother confessor and psychologist and psychiatrist and all? Why do I have to do that? Why can't I just look at somebody and say, do your damn job? I don't know. I have no idea, dude. I think the same thing all the time. But the fact of the matter is, sometimes people don't. There is a certain segment of the workforce that's going to do a job no matter who supervises them. No matter who supervises them. But the bulk of people, their performance often emanates by the quality of supervision that they have. I think that there's 3 reasons why employees don't perform. And I did a lot of thought about this coming up the ranks. Why couldn't I get people to just do their job? What were the barriers? What were the challenges? And I boiled them down, and we boiled them down to basically 3 things. There was 3 reasons why employees don't do their job. Now, you can argue with me via email or call me on the phone or put it in the chat box so you don't agree with me, but you know what? You can kiss my you-know-what, because I know this is true. And if you take some time to think it through, you'll agree with me. Now, truth be told, these are big buckets. These are big buckets. So there's a lot underneath these 3 things. But ultimately, you come back to the root of poor performance is one of these 3 things. And if we're going to coach poor performance, or if we're going to deal with poor performance, we must begin with this. And then from that, we lead to a performance management approach or strategy to help move people to standard or beyond standard. Agents of change have a style, an approach, a process, a system. They have a way to change performance for the better. This is the beginning of that. When we get together next time in that coaching session, which will really be a teaching session, we'll unpack the intricacies of it. But for now, it starts with, what are the 3 reasons employees don't perform? Reason number 1, they don't know the expectation. See, I don't work off the premise that people get in their car in the morning, and they say to themselves, you know, I think I will do a crappy job at work today. Woo! Ian, you don't know my people. Stop it. Stop right there. I believe the best of people. The majority of the workforce, any workforce, does not come to work and say, I'm going to do a crappy job. They want to do a good job. Most people do. So, they don't know the expectations. And what does that mean? Well, you stop and think about it. How have you clarified what you expect? I told them. Yeah, but the challenge with that is you have a number of different communication styles and you have a number of different learning styles, right? We talked about that. Some people learn by seeing, doing, hearing, whatever. So I verbally clarified the communication probably is not enough. And if you said this, do you understand? And they looked at you and went, uh-huh. How many of you know that's not checking for understanding? And we'll talk about that in depth next time we get together. We have to both formally and informally clarify expectations. Formal, job descriptions, written processes and procedures and policies. Those are formal ways that we clarify expectations. Informal ways, we talk. We ask open-ended questions. We ask for their feedback. We watch their performance. Those two things were clarifying expectations. So are you proactively clarifying expectations? Second reason why employees don't perform. They don't have the ability. You hired the wrong person. You hired the wrong person. They never had the ability from moment one. Or they don't have the training. You're asking you to do something, but they don't have the skills. They haven't have the enhanced skills. Well, they should figure it out. I figured it out when I got hired. Well, that's why you're the supervisor. Not everybody is you. I used to coach track way long time ago. Coached high school and college track. And I remember I coached with a lady who was in the Seoul Olympics. She could jump through the roof, dude. She was a long jumper at Arizona State University and then went to the Olympics. And she would always get frustrated with high school girls long jumpers. And she'd be like, "Hey, why can't you jump?" And finally one day I walked over to her because I coached the boys. And I said to her, I won't use her name, I was like, they can't jump because they're not you, dude. You jump 23 feet. They jump 15 feet. You're a world-class athlete. They are 14-year-old girls with braces and acne and skinny legs. And you're wondering why they're not performing like you, because they don't have the ability and they don't have the tools. Now, for you, how have you given the tools that somebody needs to do the job? Now, tools could be the physical tools, or the tools could be the training. Have you provided the training for them to do the task? Well, they should know what to do. They probably are not going to know what to do. You're probably going to have to train them in some way. All the more reason to be an effective communicator. Third reason why employees don't perform. They think they have a choice. What? Listen, they think they have a choice. Employees have choices in some areas, and in some areas there's no choice. And the most overt example is safety. There's some things that we do that's just the way we do it, because safety dictates. And so we do this, and we do that, and we do this, and we do that, and we do this, and we do that, and we put the thing underneath the tire of the truck, and we park a certain way, and we do a certain thing, and put a cone in a certain place, and just safety. Or the way that we handle paperwork, and a plan comes in, and it goes through this step, and then that step, and then this step, and then that step, and because it's a matter of public record, we have to do this thing, and then that thing, and this thing, and then that thing. No choice. That's the way we do it around here. And then there's some other things we have choices in. The way we answer the phone, and the words we use when we answer the phone, and the like. Well, oftentimes employees get confused what they have choices in or what they do not. Now, here's the funny thing about that. Whose job is it to clarify for them what they have a choice in and what they don't? Here's the other funny thing. Whose job is it to provide the tools or the training? And here's the other funny thing. Whose job is it to clarify expectations? Your job. My job as leader. All three are the supervisor's responsibility. Employees get better as soon as supervisors do. Yeah, that's the tough part about leadership, man, especially today. Your employees will get better as you get better. As you get better at clarifying expectations. As you get better at making sure they have the training and the tools and the ability. As you get better in clarifying what they have a choice in and what they don't have a choice in. 3 reasons why employees don't perform. In their root, 3 reasons. And all of them are the supervisor's responsibility, the leader's responsibility. Now, you might not like that, and you might be pushing back hard. And because I can't see the chat box, you might be putting in all kinds of nasty things about me right now. You might fire off a text to me right now. I don't care. I'm telling you right now, this is the truth. It's the truth. Truth. 20 years. Oh, I guess more than that. 24 years, 25 years, 26 years of leading people in a number of different arenas. I'm telling you, this is it. And we've done pretty good at leading people. And at the end of the day, it's this. The question then is, what do you do with it? Well, we've come to the end of our time. That's why it's part 1. That's why it's part 1. Now, part 2 will be in the coaching session, and we'll talk about what to do with this. And I'm literally going to give you a schematic, a flow chart of what to do with this. What to do when we diagnose that the person doesn't know the expectations. What to do when they don't have the abilities and tools. What to do. How do you move them from poor performance to standard performance and from standard performance to above standard performance? How do you do that in practical and real ways? So we laid down the concepts today of building trust, and we started the dialogue of why don't people just do their jobs. And now I got to give you the balance of the conversation in our coaching session of what do you do? Tangibly, step by step by step, what do you do? So you can put it in your toolkit and make it a part of the 80% of your unconscious behavior. Make no mistake, the role that you play within the organization is critical and vital. And as you get better, the organization gets better, but you don't need to be sick to get better. And as the organization gets better, the community gets better, especially in these challenging times. I know how important you are. Not just because your work touches every citizen from cradle to grave, but because you personally are the key. Directors and executive leaders have their role, so do frontline. But it's you in the middle that make the organization go. And we need you to be your best in these changing times. I thank you for your hard work. I thank you for your commitment. I thank you for your dedication. Over the coming days, we'll unpack this to a greater degree, to the nth degree. But for now, what are the 3 reasons why employees don't perform? And how can I build trust? Listen like they're going to die at midnight and send out that damn survey. And we'll talk more about it. Shout at you on Monday. Take care, everybody.